everyone, you're just about there. Just about there. One more class after this, as you know. I've got everything returned to you that I have. Probably, I want to say, sometime later this week, what I'm going to do is in Canvas, I'm going to drop everyone in here. I'm going to drop your 2 lowest assignment or quiz grades according to the syllabus. So hopefully by the end of the week or the weekend, you should see, compared to today, you should see your grade take a little bit of a boost, just a little boost, which is good news for everyone, of course. So that's what I plan to do, probably sometime on Friday, if not this weekend. What you have for me today is you have one final assignment. This is the last assignment of the semester. And I was thinking, this is what I was thinking about with this one. I don't have a quiz regarding this assignment. What I was thinking of doing, because, well, I'm starting to get a little tired. I was thinking of showing you, or going over and showing the answers to the part writing section 1. But I was thinking of collecting your handout and grading the table section 2 and the backside section 3 as a final grade in the grade book. If you're okay with that, then what I think I'll do is, why don't we start by, does anyone have any questions regarding section 2, the table, or the backside? I'll take any questions regarding that, and then I'll go over the part writing, and then don't let me forget, then I'll collect it. Yeah.
For the backside, I only got passing tones, neighbor tones, and escape tones, and a few suspensions. Is there anything else on it that I misread, or?
Okay, so passing tones, neighbor tones, escape tones, suspensions. Yeah, that looks like that's all I have as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there are any examples of anticipations or appositors or retardations. You can kind of see passing tones and neighbor tones and suspensions, I would say, are by far the most common that you'll encounter out of all the non-chord tones. There just are those others, and I guess all we got was, like, I think there was one escape tone. So, yeah, that's a fair question. So, you got, it sounds like I have a lot of what you have. Other questions regarding either the table or the backside? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
If there are 2 notes that happen to be in the circle,
Yeah.
do we go with which?
Um,
Or is it both of them or them? Or is it, because like, it's obvious usually that one of them is, but is the other one as well?
yeah, I would say no to the last question. So let me see if I can be pretty specific about this. It looks like in measure 10 and 11, you have 2 notes circled in the bass clef of the left hand of the piano. Just the quarter note, the bottom one, the bass note, just that one is a non-chord tone that you need to label. Okay? The half note in the tenor voice is a chord tone. I guess I couldn't get the circles to be small enough there, although I'll have to check on that. There's also in measure, the second to the last measure, there are 2 notes circled on beat 3 in the treble clef. The only one of those that's a non-chord tone is the alto note, the F eighth note. And that is coming from, yeah, okay. And that other one should be clear. So the only, on beat 3 of the second to last measure, the only note that you need to label is the alto note, the F, on that beat. Now, let's see. Did you have a question, JP?
No, you just answered it.
Okay, perfect.
I have a follow-up question on the last one. Since the alto has 2 non-chord notes
Yep.
by each other,
Yep.
Do we have the other non-chord note affect the one before it, or do we go off of the next actual chord note?
Yeah, I would just, for your labels, for those in the second to last measure, please try to focus only in the alto voice as to how they're approached and how they're left.
Okay.
In other words, try not to confuse any up-stem notes because those do not come into play when you need to label those two in the second to last measure. Good, other questions? Okay. Since we're talking about the back, can I go ahead and, well, I'll just have to connect, but in a minute, I'd like to actually play this example for you off of YouTube so you can hear what you're analyzing and you can hear how the non-chord tones kind of fit in with everything else. So I'm just going to connect, and after I do that, should be able to play the example on the back for you. I do, if I have time, which I do like to let you guys hear what you're analyzing or what you're working on in case you haven't had a chance to do that. I think it makes it a little more meaningful. So let's try this. And this will only take, once I get the recording going, I think just these, I don't know how many measures we have here, like 16 or so. I think it'll only take like about 30 seconds to play through. No, that's really nice. So, I mean, you just got a little bit of a taste of some of all those moving parts. Some of those are non-chord tones, obviously some of them are chord tones. And, you know, that's what real music entails, what it actually includes. So, then before I forget, I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to try to show you the part writing that I have then for section 1. And then after that, I'll collect your assignment as a final assignment. Now, let me turn the TVs on here and see if we're getting any activity. Your inner voices, once again, do not have to look exactly like mine. I know that really recently because obviously when you came with yours, your inner voices, especially in the second and third measures, aren't exactly like mine, but they are still correct. They are still correct. So a couple things that I want to show you. You don't have all that stuff down below, so I'll try to get that out of the screen. A couple of things I want to point out that you need to check or should check to make sure you have in your part writing, and I've written a lot of them up here. The second chord, the first one you had to write, the one that's 1/6, please make sure you did not double the bass in that chord. You only need the one G in the bass, no other G's in that chord. Double the E or the B. I double the B in that chord. It's an EGB triad. On beat 4 of the first measure, did you remember to sharp the D? Did you put an accidental? Okay, great, great. Finally sinking in, right? Okay, so you need a D sharp in your chord. Then, notice the progression across the bar line. Did you catch that? 5 to 6? That's one of those special progressions where we have to double what in the 6th chord? The root, third, or fifth?
Third.
The third. We double the third of the 6th chord, not the root as we would like to normally. So in order to double the third, I need 2 E's in that chord. It's a C, G chord, 2 E's. And one of the E's is going to come from taking the D sharp, wherever you have the D sharp in the prior chord, taking that up. So in order to get from the 5 chord to the 6 chord, I need to have 2 voices going up by step, and I have to have 2 voices coming down. Now the voices coming down do not necessarily have to be by step. In fact, I think, did I give you the soprano voice, the B jumps down to a G over the bar line? I think I did. But 2 voices go up, 2 voices come down, and that way you should get 2 E's in this C, E, G chord. Now, is it okay that my E's are an octave apart? One in the alto, one in the tenor? Yeah, that's the maximum space you're allowed to have between upper voices. Okay. So then these 3 chords here, the 2 diminished 6, the 1, 6, 4, and the 5, you're supposed to double the bass in all of those chords. And so I should have, if I did that right, I have 2 A's in my 2 diminished 6 chord, because that's the pitch in the bass. And I have 2 B's in both the 1, 6, 4 and the 5 chord, to be or not to be. So, now, again, there's a slight way you can do this slightly different and still get good part rating. What I did is I have, what do I have? I have unequal fifths between the tenor and the alto in the 2 diminished 6 and the 1, 6, 4 chord. I just wanted to point that out so you don't think that I have parallel fifths, because F sharp to C is a diminished fifth, and then E to B between the tenor and the alto, that is a perfect fifth. And unequal fifths are allowed unless the bass is involved. And in my case, the tenor and the alto are involved, not the bass. Also, in the next to last chord, did you sharp the D? You need to have a sharp on your D, because we're in a minor key, and that's a major 5 chord, just like it was at the end of the first measure. Now, because of where I was coming from and how the spacing of my voices, my final chord, do you notice that I've left a pitch out of that triad? Which pitch did I omit? The B, right? So I have 3 E's and a G. Is that okay to triple the root and omit the 5th? For the final chord, yes, it is okay to do that. Let's see here. So you have B, F. Oh, you got 2 F's in this chord. The 5 chord, you need to have 2 E's.
But it's my final chord, okay?
Yes, because this is in a minor voice, so T can come down. Yeah, that's right. Did you have a question?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay. Does anyone else have questions or comments, concerns about? Again, yours perhaps looks a little different than mine in the inner voices, but some of these things that I wrote on mine, I just want to make sure that you have in yours to make sure your part writing is close to, if not all the way correct. Yes?
Since the D sharp is in a middle tone,
Okay.
it doesn't have to resolve to.
Right. So if you have your D sharp, which you have to, I guess, because I gave you the soprano, and bass you have to do because of the Roman numerals. But so yeah, since the D sharp is in an inner voice, either the alto or the tenor, wherever you have it, it does not have to go up by half step to E in the next measure. it can jump down a small leap of a third to a B. The D sharp can slide down or fall down to a B, because it's in an inner voice. So it has that prerogative or that option, so to speak. I would like to play this at the piano. I kind of wish we could sing it, right? We could cite each side, take apart and cite it. I'm probably going to get a little bit from the song. Okay, so we're in E minor. Let's see here. One thing I particularly like is the deceptive resolution or progression from the 5 chord across the first bar line to this, rather than going to the 1 chord. All right, last call for questions or comments before I collect this. Very well, let me do that. Make sure your name is on it, and this will be the last grade for the semester besides the final exam, of course. So I don't know, I guess I could ask you, those of you that are like in choir and band, are you guys done?
Yeah, we have a meeting today, the kind of music, but.
I went on to a recording on Christmas song and
Oh, you're recording a Christmas song? And were you talking about choir?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just have to basically turn on our music and we're done.
Well, what are you gonna do with all your spare time?
I don't know. From other people.
Maybe come bother me, yeah. No, you'll probably go ahead, I mean, just with extra time, go ahead and take naps or sleep or whatever you need to do, I don't know. Okay, so, I got that collected, yeah, okay. So the next thing what I want to do is I want to give you another handout, and somewhere, oh, by the way, is there anyone here that did not get the non-chord tone handout last class, because I have extras? Is there anyone here that wants all the rest so you can wallpaper your dorm room with these?
yes.
Okay. All right, well, I was just going to ask because I still have extras over here. Okay, but I do have actually a different handout that you don't have yet. This is actually regarding the doubling rules that we've been talking about. It's just another way to present the information in 2 different tables. So if you find any of these tables on this handout to be helpful to remember your doubling rules, please use this. If you find this to be confusing and you know your doubling rules well enough as it is, you don't have to use this. Okay, it's not required. But I wanted to give this to you so that the information is kind of laid out in a different format. It's organized differently because I understand that everyone does not think the same way that I do. And so maybe your brain will latch on to something on this handout in a better way. So if we could just look at this for just a moment here. The top table, I guess I have it listed as the doubling rule across the top and the type of chord on the left side. And I can put it up here. I put checks into the boxes where these are the doubling rules that you do want to obey or you do want to follow based on the chord and its bass position over here. So again, if this you find is helpful, because I do want you to have your doubling rules I mean, I'm not gonna specifically ask you to write them out on the test, but I do need you to have them memorized so that you can use good part writing for the part writing examples on the test. And if that doesn't work well for you, then there's this one here where, well, I don't really know how, I just tried to think of different ways to present the information. I can't really explain how I organize the information here, but I think by reading the table, you can figure it out. You can figure it out. Yeah, I guess it's, no. Double the base, okay, that's across the top, double the base, double anything, set the base, double anything, the chord number that is doubled in those cases, so. Then, the last thing that I have, and what we need to be working on the rest of this class and also next class, since we probably won't finish it today, is the final exam review. Dun, dun, dun. No, it's not meant to be intimidating. It's really not bad, right? Because it's not a comprehensive final or anything like that. It's just a focus, a test on the last unit of this class. Well, what are you guys gonna do over December and January? You guys are gonna miss this, aren't you?
I'm gonna sleep.
You're gonna sleep.
I'm taking another class.
Oh, you are? You're taking a detour? I know. Okay, great. Wow.
Is it only part rating on this test?
It's part writing and non-chord tones, basically. Yeah, those are the two main biggies.
Got it. So is all the voice leading stuff thrown into the part rating?
Yeah, the voice leading stuff will be related to part writing.
Hey, well, that's fun.
You can even put it in for no, you are not.
What are you trying to answer the question in the big print?
Yeah, that's kind of intimidating.
Oh, okay. Well, what we can do here is we can, I'd like to definitely get through the first page today together. We'll go through this together in class. And then whatever other time we have, maybe I'll skip around. I don't have to do it in order. But then Friday, whatever we don't finish, Friday I'd like to cover and finish all the answers so that you have that. And you have the opportunity to ask any questions that you need before the final exam. Speaking of which, I should put this on the board. It's kind of an important thing. When is the final exam for this class?
Tuesday at 10:30.
Hey, look at that. You guys already know.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I want to write this down. So it's a week from yesterday?
Yeah.
So it's next Tuesday, and it's going to be that the specific date is November 24th. This year, don't wait till next November 24th, okay, you don't want
Thank
to.
you for the clarification.
All right, yeah, and it's 10:30 to 12:30. And I don't anticipate you needing the entire 2 hours, again, because it's not one of these comprehensive tests. You know, when my theory finals, when they're cumulative and they cover everything throughout the whole semester, they're, you know, they can be 6 pages or more, whatever. I mean, well, yeah. But I don't think you'll need to take the whole time, since it's just gonna be over part rating and it's gonna be over non-chord tones. So, yeah, just use the time that you need. I think you'll have plenty of time. And then, whenever you're done with that, then you can go ahead and go. You know, that's really not too bad of a time. Number one, it's on a Tuesday, it's not the last day. Number two, it's not at 8 a.m. either, right? So, I mean, yeah, that's pretty good. I've got some finals to give that are just a terrible time, but what can you do, right? So, do not confuse this. If you talk with anyone in the 1 o'clock section of this class, please be aware that their final is going to be at a different time. Okay. So, unless they want to come take it at your time and have nothing else, they're going to be at a different time, so try not to get confused. Shoot, there was one other thing I was going to say, and now, the final exam is going to be in here. It will be in this room. Okay. All right. Shall we start Shall we start cracking at this review? Okay, part rating at the top. Name 10 part rating errors. Well, you probably know, even if you don't have them all in your mind, I can tell you where there'd be a good resource to find 10 part rating errors. Yeah, the gold sheet, the yellow sheet. In fact, let me turn this on. Back on. Maybe it'll be just quicker and more efficient if I just show you some of the errors that I have listed on here. No, I bet it's not gonna work. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Great. Because I preach this so often, and I'm sure I sound like a broken record, what's one error that you could list on these?
Not, like resolving T and minor T.
Okay, let's be a little more specific about that. T, yes, in a minor key, but also in a major key, when it's in what kind of voice? An outer voice, right? Not in outer space necessarily, just an outer voice, okay? So if T is in the soprano or the bass, it's got to go up by half step. It has to resolve up, right? And if you don't do that, like I think, what do I have here? Leading tone in an outer voice not resolved up. I have that as an error, because if you don't do that, then it definitely be wrong. And you don't have to word yours exactly like mine. You can word them in your own, using your own words. But for instance, what we just heard here, number 3, what Lexi mentioned is my error number 3, leading tone in outer voice not resolved up. That's too big. What's my number 1 error that you don't never want to write or commit? Parallel unisons fifths.
You don't have to put them in a certain order, do
No,
you? Okay.
they're just all wrong. Yeah.
You can't have parallel unisons, parallel fifths, and parallel octaves as all 3 different ones, can you?
You could, I guess, if you want. Yeah.
So that could be 1, 2, and 3.
Sure, yeah, that would be okay, I guess. I just wanted to get as many as I could on here. Well, how did I have it on the gold sheet? Maybe I do list.
They're all in
Oh, just as one. Okay. Well.
It'd be your opinion on whether that would be correct still.
Yeah. I guess the jury is out. I'm really not sure. I guess I would. As long as you're filling in with it, if it's indeed an error, and if you're filling it in, I guess I would have to accept it, right? So, I'll try not to be too picky when it comes to that. Number 2, you don't want to write contrary fifths or octaves. What? I don't even know. I won't write all the voices out, but what would be an example of a contrary fifth or contrary octave? Well, let's say, for instance, you have a C major chord, and your bass and your soprano are like this. If you go to a 5 chord, for instance, in the next as the next chord, and you do this in the bass and the soprano, that's not right, because this is a perfect octave, and this is still a perfect octave on different pitches between the same 2 voices. I know they're not in parallel motion, they're in contrary motion, but that is still not permitted. So that's an example of a contrary octave. And a contrary fifth would be the same thing, except the 2 voices involved would just form a perfect fifth rather than a perfect octave. What we talked about number 3 already. Number 4, doubling the leading tone of the key or doubling T. That's always a no-no. So that would be an error. Number 5, your soprano and alto or your alto and tenor are more than an octave apart. They are never permitted to be more than an octave apart. Even an augmented octave or something really close to an octave, like a minor ninth, is not supposed to go past that limit there. Number 6, I have an error is omitting the third or the root of a chord. Which I know we don't intentionally do this, but when we part right, sometimes it happens by accident, right? It sometimes happens. Number 7, you don't want to cross voices. You don't want to have like the bass, for instance, above the tenor, or the tenor below the bass, or anything like that. Another error, number 8, would be writing notes outside of their ranges. Maybe, I know you sopranos, maybe on a good day, if you want to try to sing that pitch, go ahead, but please do not write that for sopranos to sing in part writing, because that's just too high, it's out of their range. And I know basses, we like to be very masculine, but this is not a good pitch to write for the bass. Maybe if you play the contrabassoon, you can hit that. But vocally speaking, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Number 9. Oh yes, it's an error to write a melodic augmented second or an augmented fourth. Especially the augmented second is the one that crops up most often. Okay. Now this is probably not a good example, but at least it'll illustrate it. What would be a melodic augmented second above this soprano C? That is, if the soprano went from a C to a D sharp, oof, nasty. This interval, C to D sharp, is an augmented second. And if you write that interval from one note to the next in any voice, it would be marked wrong. Okay? Major seconds are fine, minor seconds are fine. Those kind of intervals are much more singable than augmented seconds. And then, what's my last one here? Oh, yeah, not doubling the bass of the second version triad. Well, that's true. I guess that's on your gold sheet of rules. It's probably one of the last ones. And there probably, you could find some others on your gold sheet that you could list here. But I think if you can at least recall or think of 10 part writing errors, you've got most of them covered there. And hopefully you'll use that knowledge on the test to avoid doing those things. To avoid those things. So. Okay, any questions or comments about this? All right, let's go to do you know your doubling rules? Is that your answer? Or yes, I do.
That's the sheet in front of me, yes.
The sheet in front of you, yes. Okay, this chart, I will tell you right now that this chart right here, I know it's different than I've given you before, but it gets at the right information. I have this chart on the final thing. In fact, there even might be another chord off on the left column, and I might even have another one added in there. Something that I've forgotten about. Like, I don't know, but I can see, for instance, I don't have the minor 4/6 on there, do I? Well, that could be a very good chord to ask, what's the doubling rule for that one? Well, anyways, let's take them one by one. See, basically, you're going to have your choices. Do you double the bass? Do you double anything except the bass? Can you double anything in the chord, or is it do not use this chord? And you'll have those 4 choices, and all you got to do is check the right box for each chord based on its inversion or bass position. So, the 1/6, what are you supposed to double? Well, you can see it right there, I hope, right? Anything except the bass? Yeah, so you want to check that box. Okay. The 2/6, preferred doubling is to double the bass. 3/6, what's the answer for that one? Don't use that chord in that inversion. No. You don't use 3 chords in first inversion or second inversion for that matter. Those chords are more like gagging with a spoon kind of thing. They don't sound good. They're not very usable. They're not very effective. 4/6, capital, major 4/6. What are you supposed to double? Anything, right? Yeah. But, and this one's not on here. What if I had the minor 4/6? Which one of those would you check?
Should be anything but the bass.
That's right. The minor small 4/6 chord, double anything but the bass. Don't double the bass in a minor 4/6 chord. that one somehow got left off of here. I don't know if I ran out of room or I just forgot. 5, 6. I hope that you check double anything except the base or but the base. For 5, 6. 6, 6. Don't use that chord. It's a terrible, nasty inversion for that one. 7, diminish 6. Double the base in that one. That's just like the 2, 6 chord. You double the base. What about 7 diminished in root position? I think I talked about this. Don't use. Does anyone remember why you don't use that?
Because if it's in root position, you double the 7th.
Well, okay, if it's in root position, we'd be tempted to double the root, which is the 7th of the scale, and you definitely don't want to do that, yeah. Part of the reason for not using a diminished triad in root position is because the intervals above the base are not all consonant. Yeah. They're only consonant above the base when the 7th or the diminished triad is in first inversion, but you don't have to necessarily know that for the test. A 5 chord, you just double the base, it's standard root position. And then finally, all second inversion triads. 6, 4, you want to double the base in all of those. Yes.
So you said there's going to be something like this on the final, right?
Yep, that's right. That's right. And I can't tell you how many years I've done this, and some students, they don't study this, and they just check whatever, and they just lose so many points. Just write on something that's pretty easy. You just lose so many points. But you don't have to, right? As long as you study this.
I mean, you at least get 4 out of 10 if you just do the base.
Well, I guess the laws of averages or probabilities. But do not use that advice. Okay. Let's see, how much time do we have? Let's just skip around. How about, I don't know that we've done a lot of this. But what about, there's this one here. It's on the bottom of the second page, the one with the figure base. What if I gave, well, in fact, I'll probably give you something like this. Now, how on earth do you fill in what you need to fill in for this? Not only do you have to fill in the Roman numerals for the chords and the key, but you also have to come up with the right notes and the right part writing for all 3 upper voices. Well, I would go to the figures right away. Do we remember from that? Again, this is from last year. Do you remember what they mean? Okay, first of all, when there's a bass note with no number underneath it, what does that mean? Root position, right? Okay, so that means this note is the root. That means we're looking for a G, B flat, D chord. Those are the 3 notes. Do you know what to double? It's going to end up being a minor 1 Roman numeral. Do you know what to double in a minor 1 chord? Just double the root, yeah, right? So what I might do is I might, if you want to, like down here or somewhere in the margin, I might just read the figure bass and say, okay, what pitches do I actually need to spell this chord? What chord is it asking me for? And I might write down here, G, B flat, D. And the next one is going to be, well, what is 6? What's the full symbol for 6? 6, 3, right? Yeah. So a 6th above the F sharp is a D, and a 3rd above the F sharp is an A. So it's going to be a D, F sharp, A chord. If you write the notes, letter names down here, then you could probably easier find what the Roman numeral is. I would fill in the Roman numerals next, before I even start doing any part writing. And do you know why? Because we've defined the doubling rules based on basically the Roman numeral, right? The chord and what inversion it's in. So I would get all the letter names of the pitches down here and then fill in the Roman numerals. That's what I would do in that order. And only then would I start to do some of the part writing. In fact, on the top of the page, the same page, I tell you what the best way to do your part writing is. I would follow those steps in that order. Okay, so I hope this is making sense. So there's a lot of 6s, right? The full symbol is 6, 3. It's just for a triad. It's been a while. What does this stinker mean right here?
Does that mean you raise the 3rd?
That means whatever note is a third above the bass, you put a sharp on that note. You put that very accidental. That applies not to necessarily to the third of the chord, although in this case it will because it's asking for a real position one. But it technically means a third above the bass, whatever that note is. Now I don't have some examples here, but I think you might have some of this on the test. What if I gave you a figure where, what does a slash through a number mean in the figure bass? It means raise the note at that interval above the bass a half step. Raise it beyond what the key signature would call for. And the symbol that means the same thing as that is if you have a little plus next to a number. That means to raise the note at that interval above the bass a half step beyond the key signature. Okay. So you can figure out all the information you need. You just got to take it step by step. Write out, if you need to, the pitches for all the chords based on the figures. Then put the Roman numerals in the blanks according to the right bass position and everything. And only then would I start putting in the notes in the staff. Yes?
Is the fourth one a minor fourth?
Yes.
Okay.
It's going to be a minor 4/6. That's right.
And with those, you do not double the bass.
That's right. That's right. See, I think if you do it in the correct order, it'll work out and make sense. You'll know what you need to do. In fact, I say on the top of that same page in the instructions, I say, after you get the Roman numerals in, I would just write out the soprano line. Make sure you don't have any parallels, fifths or octaves, with the bass, the senior bass and soprano. And then after you know that your soprano is pretty good, doesn't have any errors, then I would go back and I would fill in the inner voices. That's how I would do it. Yeah.
This is kind of off topic-ish, but do you know if Mike is doing any tutoring for this test or not?
He is.
I think he said he will, I just don't know when.
He doesn't.
He doesn't know when yet either. Yeah, and so I'll be
Oh,
giving,
wait, no, sorry.
Oh, he does,
He's
go
doing
ahead.
it Monday night. He'll be in his, room from 5 to 8, but he's planning on having the specific music theory one at 7, I believe, 7.
okay, and what number is it one of those rooms, is it 19 or 20?
Yeah, I think it's 19.
19 or 20, okay. Wow, sounds good. He should have a copy of this, and if he doesn't, I'll get him a copy of the review, so he has just what you have. Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, the last thing, I'll go over the part rating and all the answers to this next class. Because we have just like 5 minutes left, can we skip ahead to the non-chord tone table? Let's do that. Well, I don't want to show the answers, I want you to tell me. So I'm on the page with the non-chord tone table. Let's see if we can fill in the missing blanks. By the way, you should have one of these. I think I got one of these on the test too, also. Let's see. With different blanks and different information given and not given. So, who can tell me the escape tone is approached by what?
A step.
Good, step. I would put that right in there. The second row, suspension is left by.
Is it a step down?
Good, a step down. That's right, exactly. Okay, the next row, what's the non-harmonic tone that's approached by common tone and left by step up? Oh, go ahead.
Retardation.
The retardation, yeah, that's right. You got it, retardation. Oh shoot, I don't know if I put this on. I think on the handout I gave you, there was another column that asked for metric placement or something like that. Like accents or accents. I don't remember if that was on. I don't remember if that column was on the test, it might be.
It's not on the review process.
Nothing.
Okay, well, yeah, just like that, right? So the escape tone, that's unaccented, if you want to write that over in the margin. The suspension is accented. The retardation is accented. The neighbor tone is either unaccented or accented. The anticipation is unaccented. The appoggiatura is accented. And the passing tone is either or both. Unaccented and accented. where was I? Neighbor tone. How is it approached and left?
Approached by a step and followed by, left by a step in opposite direction.
Yeah, that's right. Approach by step, left by step in opposite direction. Okay. Moving on to the next row in anticipation. How is an anticipation left?
Is that common to them?
That's right, same tone, common tone, you're right. Okay. And then, what is, in the next row, what is the non-harmonic tone I'm looking for that's approached by leap and left by step? Good, appoggiatura. And if you misspell it, you lose 5 million, no, I'm just kidding, you don't.
How do you spell it?
You spell it with 2 P's and 2 G's. I won't take off for spelling.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's a French term, but this is the way, whoops, this is the way I spell it. 2 P's, 2 G's. If you write out the word appendectomy or something like that, I might give you half credit. Good quote.
Just put APP.
That is the abbreviation, you are correct. The last row, we'll finish here. A passing tone, how is it approached and left?
First by step.
Approached by step and left by
Step is in the same direction.
step in the same direction. That's right, okay. Good. Okay, anything that we have not completed here, I would like you to look at and try on your own between now and Friday. I will go over the answers, but it is to your most benefit if you start working on this on your own and see what kind of questions you have or problems you run into. Yes?
Is there any chance we get to use any of these sheets during the test? No.
You can use a blank piece of staff paper if you want to write things down. I'll let you know that. Okay, thanks guys. We'll see you on Friday for the final, whatever you want to call it. The final thing.